Welcome to the Possibility Perspective with me, Jess. Authentic, bold, and challenging conversations. You'll hear stories from me, conversations with peers, and interviews with experts on a variety of topics, all with different perspectives. Now, let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of The Possibility Perspective, and I'm excited about the perspective we get to hear from today. My guest is Kelly Butchart. She's a soul medicine woman, and pause there because we're going to find out what that means. And she's an intuitive guide, energy alchemist, and change maker. And she's also the host of her own podcast, The Soul Call with Kelly B. And let me tell you, I've consumed a few of her episodes, and she's masterful. Just her energy, her style, the guests she brings on is absolutely amazing and lights up my soul when I watch her and listen to her. So I'm excited about that. She supports heart-led women to reclaim their own power. Woot woot! And awaken their soul purpose and rise into sacred sovereignty. And I just want to, can you just take in these words for a minute? Reclaim your power, awaken your soul purpose, and rise into sacred sovereignty. That feels good. That feels good to even say. So, welcome, Kelly, to my show.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessica. I am so honoured to be invited on. I said this to you before we press record. Thank you so much for asking me to come on because I'm usually where you are.
It's fun to be on the other side of it, right?
It really is. It really is. So I'm really looking forward to this beautiful conversation and thank you for that lovely, lovely introduction.
I want to start with your soul call and I want to know your journey because when we step into a place like this, and let me back up before I ask the question because where I am in my journey, I'm in the consuming phase. I'm not in the teaching phase and helping and empowering other people yet. I'm in the consuming phase of my journey. I'm consuming all the greats, all the podcasts. And right now I'm listening to a Hay House recording of Dr. Wayne Dyer. And it's like a 4-hour event that he did and they have it recorded. So I've been listening to that recently, literally this morning. So I'm in that consuming, seeking phase. So tell me about your journey because when you get to this place where you're like, I'm here, I'm ready to help, there's been a journey that got you here, right?
It certainly has been a journey, and you've mentioned one of my favourites there, Dr. Wayne Dyer. He's definitely been a big influence and had lasting impact on me. And I guess really what I would say is that I spent 22 of my adult years working in education. So I was a teacher and I was latterly a school principal, naively thinking that if you climbed the education ladder, you could make more of an influence. But truthfully speaking, I just became more frustrated with the system. That could be a whole other podcast episode in and of itself. But even though I was a teacher, and I really do feel like I've been a teacher in many lifetimes, I always remember that first and foremost, I'm a learner. So I'm a seeker of truth. And this journey that I have been on in this life has led me to learn and remember the most miraculous and amazing things. Too many to mention here, but I guess if I just sort of summarize it as best I can, as a child, I was always aware that there was an unseen world, there were unseen realms. I was aware of spirit growing up. My granny, she used to talk about ghosts that she would see, and you would be sitting in in her living room, and the door would open, and she'd say, "Come in," and she'd pat the chair, the empty chair next to you. So you just got kind of used to that sort of environment. And I read a lot of books about witches and wizardry. And living in Scotland, we're immersed in a lot of what happened to women and men through the years, which wasn't very good. So there was a lot of that. And then going through my own education has been a really interesting process as well. That could be another podcast episode too. Um, and then as I became I think it was when I was in teacher training actually, started to become interested in other religions and other people's perspectives very deeply. And I really consciously started to connect with this journey inwards. Rather than looking outside of myself, I started to really connect inwards and get naturally more curious about who am I? What am I here to do? What is my purpose? And that has never stopped. That has never stopped. And that continues to this day. So I always try and remember to look at the world through the eyes of a child with wonderment every day, natural curiosity, because it's so important to remember that we are a fractal of the Godhead. And I don't mean that in a religious context. I've done the religious thing too, and stepped away and really found that my church is in here in my heart. And so, again, that was an external journey that always brought me back to my heart.
Yeah.
So, this journey's been very complex, very interesting. Um, but really, what we want to do is bring it back to that simplicity of being the seeker, looking at the world through the eyes of a child. And when I was having difficult moments when I worked as a head teacher for a few years, I would go down and spend time with the wisest beings in that school, and they were my 3-year-olds in the nursery, or you would call it kindergarten, because they are the closest to the Godhead. They've not had the indoctrination, the level of programming that we've had in this matrix, holographic reality, call it what you will. They and many of them are old souls, remember, but they're in these little young bodies. And I do believe that this is what I am here to do, is to help to awaken and activate that deep soul remembrance in others of who we truly are.
That's so beautiful. And really, I mean, you speak to a lot of the reason I started this podcast. I mean, my idea of the possibility perspective is to understand other people, understand as an observer in non judgment and with compassion and love. And, it's interesting you talk about because I think this journey for a lot of us is we're looking, we're looking, we're learning, we're absorbing, and then it all does come back to understanding ourselves and that introspection of really who am I? What am I here to do? And how do I tap into that? And that is different for everybody. And I think one of the biggest myths is that it is a journey that there's an end point. It's always it's always happening.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I talk about, um, well, sacred geometry is very important. The spiral for me is very important. And I talk about the divine fluctuations on the way up. So just when you think you've got to that ceiling then becomes your next floor. And, really, it's the same is true of going into that inner scape, going in through the most ancient Stargate portal, which is your heart. And the truth of the heart, we don't teach this in schools. And we have to search for that inwardly. And so we spiral down in through the heart. And I have had the most amazing experiences by doing that. So I've shifted from being a head teacher to a heart teacher, and it never ends. It never ends. And, another fallacy is that our imagination is we're just making things up. We are here to imagine in and create new pictures of reality, to dream all of the possibilities. So there is endless opportunities and there's infinite possibilities. So when we live in this infinite playground, if you like, through the portal of the heart, it doesn't end. The learning doesn't end. we've had, we live as multidimensional beings in a multiverse, which is infinite. So we just get to have fun. And I think that's the thing that I want to remind myself of right now and to share is, don't get too caught up in intellectualizing everything. I've spent a ton of years, like being that academic and, looking for all these answers. Yeah, that's interesting. And there is a part of me that will always do that. But also to remember in this infinite playground, we get to have fun. Yeah, the quantum field is a fun place to be. And this is what, we really need to get back to that remembrance of being in that heart joy, being in that space.
Mhm. It's so true, and I love I've talked about this on my show a few times that I'm a bit of an overthinker, and, you know example of that was just the other day, so funny. I'm trying to trick myself, my overthinking, into getting myself back into the fun and the joy and the just being. So I was out for a walk in the woods, and I was kind of repeating this mantra that was coming up a lot in the Dr. Wayne Dyer audio that I'm listening to, and it's I'm open to everything and I'm attached to nothing. And then I had to, though I couldn't just repeat the mantra, I had to, like, trick my brain into, like, really believing that, and so I was going, "I'm open to everything, and I'm attached to nothing, and I can be attached to nothing because I have this belief that if it's for me, it will be, and if it's not for me, then it won't because there's something even better." Like, I had to, like, keep going to, like, try to tell my brain that just it's gonna be fine, right? Because and I think there's those times in our life, right, where and I'm the attachment piece is hard. I asked my husband, I was like, "I get it, but how do you release attachment to something when you really, really want it?" It's hard to do, or it can be hard to do anyways, at least I'm making it hard. What do you say to that?
So what I'm in the process of mastering, because we're never there, as you said, we're never at that end point, is remembering that we have destiny. Yeah, we have destiny. But at the same time, we also have sovereignty. So we have divine will to move in this quantum field as we choose. And to move through life without attachment is really challenging. It's very, very challenging. And when we hear the term, surrender to trust, and I say this all the time, what we're talking about is not just backing off and saying, well, the universe will take care of it all. There has to be a co creation that happens. And that co creation is when we remember our sovereignty and we remember the truth that we are fractals of the Godhead. And we have been given these goddess given powers to use this power of love with the reverence that it deserves. So almost to be in joy with the joy of receiving that gift.
Yeah.
And if we move through life with intentionality, with heart centered purpose, then we can surrender the rest to the universe. So I call it active trust because it's not forcing things in the masculine way. What we're being asked to do in this new paradigm is to lead from the heart, and that's allowing the divine feminine energy within all of us, regardless of our gender, is to allow that divine feminine within us to lead. And that doesn't mean to say that the masculine is gone and left us. They are in divine union. And so the masculine energy within us is the action. But we're now allowing the heart to lead and allowing the mind to rest, the action to rest, and then knowing that if you're really following your heart and being really honest with yourself and moving through life with integrity, seeing all the wonder and everything. And this sounds really woo, I know it does, but this is the this is the challenge for us now to get back to that place of being that embodiment of love.
Yeah.
So we are this living sentient being, but we emanate frequency. So when we move with love, we are, and this was a recent download that I had, Jessica, from my higher self, this term quantum imprinting. So wherever we go, like you went for your walk in the woods the other day, you're walking with your heart field wide open, you're quantum imprinting on that field around you, on the forest, on the trees, on the nature spirits, on the animals. We live in that place of synergy with the quantum field. So you're imprinting on that place as it's imprinting on you. So it's as simple as, if I was to walk out my front door and the sun is unusually shining in Scotland today, it feels so good. The sun, that life force giving energy feels so good. So it illuminates us. We also have this eternal light within us, and some of us have it dimmed right down. So we get back in that frequency of joy and turning that back up. We are quantum imprinting on the field. So we are elevating the frequency everywhere we go. And so the same is true when we are manifesting anything. A lot of what I say about manifestation and I want the thing or I want to experience this or that or whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with that per se, but always hold on to everything's energy. So hold on to the frequency of it's already here and know that you have already co created that. So time is not linear. So it will come in divine timing if it's for your greater and highest good. So when I say surrender to trust, it's as complex as that and as simple as that. It's just
Yeah.
be that emanation of love and do everything with pure love and intentionality and allow the feminine to lead.
And so if we were to break this down for somebody who is like, okay, great, just do that, right? How? How do I do that? Where do I begin? What are some tools? Let's bring out your teacher and teach us some tools to try to get into that space.
Yeah, yeah. And it's easier said than done. And I'm going to say that, for me now, it's just who I am. And that has it's been a journey, and for me, there's been a number of things that I've done. Meditation for a start, and I have a lot of people. So I have a membership where I teach people how to meditate, and I also have like a VIP group in my home here called Sacred Steps, and it's a little spiral into the heart as the logo. And really, meditation for me, there's all different kinds of meditation, but ultimately, what we're wanting in my work that I do, we're wanting to access these deeper brain waves, the relaxed state for the body to be in. So there's various ways that we can do that, and I also encourage people to activate their imagination. Now, that can be very difficult for some people who they're not used to working in that way, or they don't necessarily get visuals and pictures in their mind. But we also have these incredible sensory abilities, and we've all got different unique gifts. So, meditation, first and foremost, will help you to relax your body, to get into that safe space of actually tuning into your body and knowing, right, okay, maybe some of the bigger questions right now about who I am might be quite out there, but even just starting to connect in through your heart. So, practicing meditation with a really good guide to get you into that heart space. And then, what you might start to explore is an awareness of your own energy field. And that's really, really important because we're at a time now where we must take self responsibility for our energy in all ways. So, not just the words that we speak, but in how we are. how we are as a frequency. So, again, meditation is that key for, coming into this heart space and allowing yourself to tune into your own frequency. What is your home frequency? And, some of it might be ugly. Some of it you might be like, gosh, I was really losing my temper yesterday or this morning, or we're human beings and we are meant to have emotions. And this is what I taught my primary school children. We have these emotions, they're a gift. And your body never lies. Your body holds a score. So if your body has experienced trauma, and again, that's a scale, if your body is storing up anything that's out of alignment and balance, then just allowing yourself to come inside, you will start to tune into that. Movement is good. So whether it's, really being physical, which I'm not these days, but gentle movement, walking in nature. Nature is amazing. Grounding every day. And there's simple exercises to ground. And again, that brings you back into remembering that nature isn't separate to us. We are nature. So bring yourself back into alignment of what is most natural for you to be in alignment. What is most natural for the human condition. So we live in a very technological age, and I'm not opposed to technology. We've had very advanced technologies always, for gazillions of years. Much of it's hidden from us as well. But what I'm talking about here is our divine technologies, not just the artificial technologies, but the divine technologies that we hold. So this is about coming back to center, even if you've never meditated before. Simple things like being in nature, um, gratitude. Everybody talks about gratitude. Um, you don't have to be practicing necessarily mindfulness in a very conscious and purposeful way. You can if you want. But even just waking up in the morning and tuning in and thinking, gosh, that was a really rough sleep last night. Right, so how am I? How am I energetically? And then shifting that out if that needs to be shifted. So I do sort of a lot of somatic work. I tutor in something called silent counselling. So learning what works for you to shift emotions out of your body. Um, so I'll maybe do a bit of that, releasing toxins from my body in various different ways. And I might do some journaling, or I might do a bit of automatic writing. So I'll maybe ask my higher self, which is the higher, wiser aspect of me, which is part of me. We're not limited to these physical bodies. And I'll just ask a question, I'll write it out. What does my higher self want me to know today? And it always brings me back to gratitude. It always brings me back to what's already here. And it's a very, very interesting process. And, that's even just one thing I would ask people to start doing. Just ask your higher self that question and just allow the pen to flow. Just allow it to happen. It might be a word, it might be a line, it might be pages that comes out, but it's always profound what comes out because you hold all of this wisdom within you.
It's so true. I've never considered myself a journaler, and I've done a couple of exercises, and I now have a journal, which I've never even said I have a journal. And I don't do it every day, but I do when I'm feeling called to. And sometimes it's really interesting. Sometimes I'm writing just like a mantra over and over again. Sometimes I'm like almost visualizing something. Sometimes I'm, reflecting in gratitude. And so the thing that I would encourage people to do, because you just shared several ways to try to get into this space. And I think that's what's important to remember is not everything works for everyone. And don't be afraid to try and then put it aside and try again because I've tried journaling before and I was like, eh. this is stupid. It's not for me. I'm not a writer, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, I literally just had this urge one day. And so I just went to the dollar store and I like combed through all of the different little notebooks that they had, and I was like, waited till I found one that I really liked. I mean, this is just a silly little exercise, but and then I was like, "Oh, and they have orange pens because my favorite color is orange, and so I'm gonna write in orange." And so now it's not just about the journal, it's about this whole process because the cover of it is like this pretend leather. I mean, it's from the dollar store, so it's not like this, major, but it says "Make it happen" in gold letters, and then you open it up, and it's just these, like, no lines, just free flow pages, and then I get to write in orange pen, and the process of it makes me smile. It doesn't even matter what I'm writing, and so I just encourage people to do that. Another example is when I was walking in the woods, and I was kind of reflecting on this oneness, and I was really like, "Okay, I wanna get into this." I was trying really hard to get into this space, right? And I was like looked up at the trees and I was like, "Thank you. Thank you for sharing this space with me. Thank you for letting me be in your nature. Thank you for." And then I kinda made myself chuckle because I was like, "Oh, this is really silly." But again, I put myself into a place of joy, even by doing that, and it felt silly. It also at the same time felt sincere because I really was thanking the park and the place for being there and for being a place for me to get fresh air and get exercise and all of these things. And so it doesn't have to be a rigid practice, I don't think. I don't think it has to be, something that you repeat over and over and over again. I think it just is like I think we just look for these little moments of opportunity.
I love that. I love that. I think repetition for some people can be dull.
Mhm.
Mm, it depends what it is and it depends on the person. And I can get easily bored. So I tend to go with the organic flow of the day, of the moment, just as you're describing. So today I felt like picking up my shamanic drum and drumming today and just tuning into my heartbeat in that way. So I love to do that kind of journeying. And that's how I work for some clients. But not one size fits all. And I guess that's been part of my journey as well, exploring lots of different things. And I believe that everything that we find along the way is almost like we leave breadcrumbs for ourselves. We've been very clever. And we're retrieving the breadcrumbs to reactivate ourselves, to reactivate our DNA and to reactivate what I call the divine gold print within. And so, when you think about when you've had experiences in life, whether it's deja vu or whether it's I recognize this person at a soul level, or I've been here before, but I physically haven't got on a plane and been here before. So, how is that?
Yeah.
That resonance, it's a remembrance. And even when you come into contact with someone or you read a book, and you're something really inspires you or something really resonates, we are awakening ourselves to the truth of who we are. So I just love all of it. I can't get enough of all of it, and I'm here for the deep soulful conversations. And to be honest, I can only spend so long in the energy now of just doing the kind of mundane. For me, it's like for the remainder of my life, I'm so committed to being this eternal seeker of just everything.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. There's so much available to still experience.
It's so true. I was listening to a podcast I started consuming so this is one of the things I do to just so I'm really like, I'm working on myself, I'm doing a lot of things, and sometimes I just need to, like, pause on that and be like, "Okay, I'm doing a lot of work on myself, I just need to,
Yeah.
just chill." And so I was consuming, Good Hang by Amy Poehler, and it's just literally she's like, "I'm not here to teach you anything, I'm just here for a good hang," and she just interviews all these other comedians and actors, and it's just a fun conversation, and one of the ones I don't remember who she was talking to, but they were talking about they just don't have space or the patience anymore for small talk. It's like, "Let's get into it. Let's really just dive into it," And that transitions me to what I wanted to ask you about because I promised my audience that I would talk to somebody about authenticity. And I think that does align with everything we're talking about, our true, authentic selves. And what I'd love to ask you, what does authenticity mean to you?
So this has also been a bit of an evolution for me. You read books and you hear people talking about authenticity, but really, what does it mean to me? So I'm really grateful for that question because as I speak these words, I'm just asking my higher self to drop in and help me with this one. Because what does authenticity mean to me? So right now, my truth of authenticity is being not denying any aspect of me any longer. So when I shared with you at the start, some of this journey that I've been on, when I worked in education, for example, I was hiding such a huge part of myself through fear of judgment. So I was coming home from a very busy full time job, but then I was seeing clients in the evening and at the weekends and providing intuitive readings, healings, soul coaching. And yet I wasn't speaking about this publicly. So I was very much in the spiritual closet. And so that was really a dishonouring of who I was as a soul, and it wasn't serving me. And so I had been telling myself that I would do this work near a retirement, but the urge was becoming too big. And although the experience that we've had, in the last 5 years, 5 years ago, the whole world changed um, drastically. And I got really, really down about it all and really lost with what was happening in education and feeling that we were unnecessarily traumatizing our children. And I did get angry about it, but I thought I can't stay in the energy of being angry with this and frustrated with this. But I had to really elevate my frequency and think, what can I do now? And what would not leave me was, you can't not serve as who you are. You're only bringing half of yourself to the table at education and you're hiding this huge part of who you are. And I thought, oh gosh, right, so that's not going to go down well in this system as it currently stands. So I had to leave the frustration behind. And as much as there was still a lot that I loved about that job, it was time for me to leave the 9 to 5, so to speak, the old paradigm, the institution of education and all that that encompasses, and to really step into alignment with the truth of who I was. So for me, it was about integrating and embodying all of who I am and not compartmentalizing myself any longer and hiding the aspects. So that took a lot of work, a lot of healing, the sort of witch wound, the persecution, the self saboteur. They just kept coming. It was like, gosh, here's another layer and another layer. And yeah, it's been a deep journey of, people will judge you anyway. So for me, it's about speaking from your heart, not from your head. There are too many talking heads out there and, you know, really regurgitating things that they don't truly believe in their hearts.
Mhm.
And I can give you one example. I was at a conference, it was a really big conference, and it was a load of sort of leaders in education. There were lords and ladies and dignitaries at this in this huge ballroom. There were members of parliament, and my group that I was sitting with at my table, I could sense the fear about speaking their truth. So I was voluntold, I was passed the mic and told that I was to do the speaking. And I don't even remember all the words that I spoke that day. I remember my knees were shaking and my voice was trembling, but this force was moving through me to speak my truth. And one of the beautiful souls that had coordinated that event, Sir Norman Drummond, a very, very special man, he came and hugged me at the end and he spoke in my ear and he said, "Never, ever stop speaking truth to power, Kelly."
Wow.
And that has stayed with me to this day. And really, I what we have to do is speak from the heart. So for me, I did that day. It wasn't something rehearsed. I wasn't expecting to speak. So I was really put on the spot and I just spoke. And there was complete silence after I spoke, followed by a little bit of applause and then rapturous applause because I think everybody was so shocked that I had spoken in the way that I had. And I think for me, that is the most important thing is it's time now. It's time to lose the labels, to lose the masks, to lose all of these um, fences that we have put around ourselves. There's lots of sort of metaphors that I could use here, but it's just get back to the core of who you are. Get back to the core of who you are. And a big program in me that was running was people looked to me as a leader to know all the answers all of the time. And I'm like, wait a minute. And that's been so freeing and so liberating to let go of that because I don't have all the answers and I would never ever say that I do because I am a seeker, I am a learner first and foremost. But my goodness, my heart is in the place where I will hold you in the most sacred container. When you come into my world and work with me, I see your gifts and I know that I have a gift to awaken and activate others to the truth of who they are. And really, that's how simple it is. Do you know? It's like I just allow people to open their hearts and it's really, really beautiful. So for me, authenticity is getting rid of all the shit, all the layers, all the indoctrination, all the programs, and just get back into your bloody heart and be that be that breathing essence of who you are. And remember that you are dishonoring yourself if you do not do that.
Mhm.
You're here to be so much more than you were ever told.
That's so true. That was so beautifully put. And thank you for sharing that because those were the words I was searching for on my other podcast. I was like, doing all these things and I was like, it means this and it means this and it means this. And it is just getting back to your own self and your own heart. And I think we've all had these experiences of both compartmentalizing ourselves because we're this person here, we're this person here, we're this person here. And then we've also had these moments where we break through and you can feel that. You can feel that like this was me. This was the true me, right? And it is, and it's always an evolving journey. So the true me of 10 years ago is not necessarily the same true me of today, and that's okay. So I think it's giving ourselves that grace and understanding that we are evolving beings too, and it's okay to change. It's okay to change our mind. It's okay to change what's true for us in those moments, right?
Mm.
And and it takes courage. That's the one thing I want to acknowledge you for the courage to step into your soul self the way you have and be able to then support other people in that journey. What an amazing gift to give someone is to walk alongside them on their journey and be part of their process of discovering who they are or rediscovering maybe who they are.
Absolutely, it really is. And, I don't want anybody ever to put me on a pedestal because I always remind my clients that they are also my teacher. So I'm learning along with them. And, in other lives, they may have been a teacher to me. And so I really feel that we come into each other's spaces for a reason. I feel there's even a divine purpose behind the connections that we have as well. Everybody is here to teach us something about ourselves. And it is such an honour, and I never ever take it for granted. And you mentioned a word, one of my favourite words, which is courage. And when we think about the root of courage, cœur, the French word for the heart, it's all about having that heart bravery to be all of who you came here to be. So, there are times where I've had to step out and be that warrior. You know, there are times where I'm very soft. There are times where I've been very, very fierce in my love. Um, and it's always about having compassion for those younger versions of yourself. So when I was talking earlier about these divine fluctuations on the way up, we think, we've nailed it. I'm at this place thing where the ego's there. It's like, oh, yes, I've sussed this bit of my life. And then the next lesson comes along or the rug gets pulled and you think, oh shit, I'm now back down at the floor again. But actually, you're never back where you were before. You're always spiraling up. So that ceiling's become your new floor. You're elevating up. If you're doing the conscious work, if you are pouring love into your life, into you, into others, then you are going in the right direction. And we are evolving and growing every day. We're learning every day or choosing not to because you also have that divine will where you might say, well, I'm not ready to look at that yet. Put that shadow back in his box.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I've definitely done that before. Nope, I'm not ready to go there yet. Let's just press pause on that one and we'll circle back around.
Yeah, yeah. And that comes back to authenticity. We can deny that we have these shadow aspects of ourselves, but the truth is, we all have shadow frequencies that we're here to master and to step into our gifts. I'm a big fan of Richard Rudd's work, The Gene Keys, and I weave that into the work that I do, the service that I provide. It's really, really inspired me. And he talks about, as Carol Young did, the shadow and the shadow frequencies. He talks about your gift frequencies and he talks about your Siddhic frequencies. So that's where you're reaching enlightenment. That's where you're really awakening to embodying the higher frequencies of who you are and really moving through life and being that divine emanation of love in all its facets.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for this conversation. I'd like to, you mentioned a little bit about your membership and ways people can connect into you. So tell us how people can connect with you. How can they watch or listen to your podcast? What's the best place for people to go?
Oh, fabulous. Thank you so much. So people can find me at Kelly Butchart Coaching on Instagram and Facebook. I don't currently have a website, so the best place to find me is on social media. My podcast is The Soul Call with Kelly B. And yeah, my membership is online. It's in a Facebook group. You'll find details about that on my social media platforms as well. And although, I love the woo, I'm very much about, let's ground this into reality. I have a head in the cosmos, my feet very much on the ground. So if I'm that kind of person for you, and you're feeling that, oh, okay, it's somebody who's actually, got both. Yeah, I've got my feet in one world and my head in another. Then please, please, please come and check me out. I'd love to connect with you.
Absolutely. You're that bridge for and that's what's much needed is somebody with both so we can apply these beautiful teachings into our life. That's
Absolutely.
my greatest um let's say preaching thing I want to say is that it's good to learn and consume and do all these things, but until we can learn to apply it really practically in our everyday living, all it is just more words.
That's right. That's right. And this is what you'd said earlier about having a pause every now and again. Richard Rudd talks about a power pause. And that can look, in lots of different ways, but just taken time to integrate and come back to the truth of who you are.
Absolutely. I think that's the perfect place for us to pause and end this conversation because what words of wisdom to leave with. Thank you again for being here. And I will, everyone watching or listening to this, I will make sure I link both Kelly's Facebook and Instagram in the notes so you can easily find her. And thank you. Just thank you for being here. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you so much again, Jessica, for having me on today.
And everyone, stay tuned. I may be taking a little break over the summer, but we'll be back with more possibility perspective episodes soon. Thanks for listening to The Possibility Perspective on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information about the show, you can subscribe to the podcast. Visit thepossibilityperspective.com.